Perfect. Thanks, you guys. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Got it close.
You're right on time.
Thanks for your patience. So we will call to order the January 5th, 2023 meeting of the Historic District Commission. So first thing is call to order. Would you please help us with that?
Yes. Leo. Canarza.
Here.
Lewis. Penozo
Here.
and Patterson.
Here.
And Chair Straker.
Oh, I'm sorry, Straker.
That's okay.
I missed you there.
Here. No, it's
Yeah,
all right.
before, Mr. Chair.
Last one in. Thank you. Are there any additions or changes or deletions to tonight's agenda? We're good with what's in front of us?
Not
Okay.
from staff here.
Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the regular meeting held on December 1st? And if you have, do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Thank you.
First. Support.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Okay. Are there any public comments on the agenda items?
One minute.
Yes.
Logan White.
Hi.
I live at 237 Spear, which is the immediately adjacent property to 647 Butler Street on the Spear section. Been talking, my name is Logan White.
Thank you.
Yeah. Been talking a little bit with Suresh. We're getting some things figured out with the fence. But my concern is mostly about the fence, as far as how that is going to appear in the area. We feel like what was presented in the documents could be improved from a visual standpoint. And with the prominence of that property, I do think that that's and the goal of this commission. I feel like that's an important thing to address. So I'm just here to hear about that.
Okay.
And see what's going on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Got another one, Mr. Chair.
To read or, oh, sorry, I didn't see you standing there. Sorry, come on up.
A little slow on that. Good evening. My name
worries.
is Russ Gardner, 245 Spear Street. I would want to say welcome to our neighborhood. I live right next door to Logan. I have lived next to your house for 61 years. So I spent a lot of time in your yard. Spent a lot of time in neighbors' yards, and I really appreciate in the application. I had a chance to read it in detail. I share Mr. White's concerns about the fence. And I'm sure the Historic Commission will be discussing this as well, is that the zoning ordinance specifically talks about fences. There are certain heights and so forth, but specifically for the historic district, this is a contributing property as well, is that I believe a 6-foot, 8-panel white fence will completely eradicate the neighborhood and the feeling that we're all just there to be together. It will create kind of a walled off property. And I think it would be aesthetically not pleasing. I do support some of the other changes. The house definitely could use some help. But I think in terms of the historic nature of that property, as well as my experience in the neighborhood, that fence is just not right. Also too, I think if you take a look around the neighborhood, there are no fences like that. There's a lot of small 3-4 foot white wood picket fences, but nothing of this nature. So it'd be unprecedented. The other issue or question I have is about the removal of the tree that's between your garage and the house. That tree just made it through a blizzard. So the point that was made on the application is that the tree is subject to high winds. It just made it through some of the highest winds we can ever experience here. And also noted too, and it wasn't in the picture, is that the previous owners have taken great care with that tree over the years. They've actually had a band installed to keep the 3 trunks together so the tree will not split. So I just want to make that of concern too. That may not be a historic issue, but something from a neighborhood standpoint. That tree provides great shade for the neighborhood, great place for the squirrels and so forth. So that's of concern to me as well, but I look forward to working with you, meeting you as a neighbor. We have a block party every summer. So look for an invite. Comes up on August 16th. And yeah, so I appreciate the Historic Commission's work this evening, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, So I'll go back to the agenda. So those were our public comments. Is there any unfinished business? No. So we will move right to new business, which is what we've just talked about, 647 Butler Street. So if you haven't been with the commission before, the way we do this is we've all had a chance to look at the application. We usually drive by, walk by too, and familiarize ourselves with it when we can. We usually like to have a little overview of what you'd like to do. Anything that's not already in our packet that you might want to emphasize or point out. Sure, if you want. And then what I'm going to do is, once you do that, all the commissioners will weigh in and maybe ask questions of clarity. And after we've done that, we'll have a vote.
Sounds good.
So, okay.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name's Suresh. As many of you know, we actually have been in and around the area for a little while. We also own 215 Grand Street in Saugatuck as well, just on the hill. We just needed something a little bit bigger. We were traveling back and forth from Chicago, and now our goal is to be here a lot more and base ourselves out of Saugatuck. So look forward to the block party, and also look forward to getting to know all of you better. We've already started work on the interior of the property. We've held off on any exterior work until we didn't realize that this was in the historic district when we bought it, to be completely candid. But when we found out, we did the appropriate, spoke to Ryan, did the appropriate paperwork, and then came to I'm here to discuss what our plans are. We don't intend to change too much of this exterior aesthetic. We just want to kind of refresh what's there. So we don't plan on painting it fuchsia or pink. Our plan is to paint it white, keep the exterior color. The only difference in color changes will likely be new shingles with replacing the existing shingles. I think they're like a dark green right now, so replacing those to black or a dark gray, and then potentially doing a white or a black window. The only caveat to that is just availability of supply. So it seems like the white ones are available. Our goal is to do the black, but if that's going to take 3-4 months for us to get them, then we'll probably go back to the white. So that's the only variance. We also did want to do the muntins, is that what they're called? On the top half of the double hung window. We noticed that a lot of the other houses on Butler Street also have that same window style. So that's what, because currently there's nothing on the windows. It's just a double hung window, which we're fine keeping. We actually thought that it might help blend in with the area to add the muntins. The tree in the back, the only reason we did notice that there was work to kind of put some band around it. And that band has kind of cut into the 3 branches and it has snapped. So again, our fear as the new homeowners and after spending $700,000 on the house, if something was to fall and break something, that would be a bit of a liability. So there is, the 3 big branches, half of them are kind of cut into with this wire that has been installed. I guess we're at the end of the day, if the decision is made to keep the tree and try to salvage it, that's fine. I'm just thinking about from a liability perspective, we're not only, sinking hundreds of thousands of dollars into this property with new stuff, but if that ends up causing damage, that's a bit of a liability. The other thing is we did have a tree fall on the house we already have on the hill. So, it's on 215 Grand Street. So that was part of our worry and concern. And that was a very mature, well-stabilized tree that fell on the property as well. I don't know, am I doing okay? Are there any specific questions about the exterior? I believe one of the other areas was the addition of either a deck or a covered sunroom type addition. I've been talking to Ryan as well. I believe that does require some special approval because that does take us into the next level of land to property or land to building ratio. So we're not necessarily sold. We're flexible on how we can potentially structure that. The only thing we do require approval on today, at the back of the property, there's an existing 36-inch window that we would like to make a 60-inch door. That would either take us into either a back landing area to steps down to the ground level, or a deck, or this sunroom that we're proposing. But the thing we'll need to hopefully approve today is to at least get the framing done for that door, so that I can either come back to the next meeting to talk through what we're gonna do with that step down or deck or the cupboard, the sunroom.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go around the room, just this one's curious in that, thank you for the very complete application on the cut sheets. This one is curious in that we usually don't have that, so I appreciate that. What we don't have is more specific drawings on things like taking windows out and putting doors in, or specifics on your deck. So you already said, like, you might come back with a bigger plan on that.
Yes.
So I'm just noting that we don't really have drawings to look at and approve on terms of windows coming out and doors going in.
I think I'd included a picture of
Did
the,
you?
yes, of the,
Where that
So
goes.
right here. Backside of the,
Right, but
backside
not,
of this thing.
not,
yeah, so that's the picture that I had included. So that would, the window that's at the back of the property, that's the one we would
oh,
be,
got it at the
yes.
top,
No, the
Oh.
bottom.
the bottom. Okay,
That would be converted into a 60-inch. So there's two requests for window changes. Everything else will stay the same. The only changes that we're planning to make from a window perspective is making that bottom one a door
got it,
and making the big one and the top one, making it bit bigger.
got it. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Sorry, I encroached on your time on that.
That's all right.
Do you want to start with you, Keith?
Yeah, I'll start. And I'm not gonna cover all the bases. I'm gonna just start with one. It's the streetscape compatibility. I think that's a big issue here. And it is the fence. So I know there's, we've got two sets of requirements here. We have guidelines on the Historic District Commission, and we have regulations on the other side. And so I think we want to pause and consider how aligned that type of a fence in this, on this street is anywhere near what we consider appropriate from a Historic District Commission.
Yeah, and I hadn't touched on the fence part yet. I was going to kind of address that.
Let's
after
start
this one, yeah.
there, because I think that's why the neighbors are here.
Yeah, so
And-
I can maybe discuss I am flexible with the fence as well. I know that we had requested a
Right.
much broader fence.
Mhm.
So the reason why we need to have a fence is we've got a dog, our little baby that likes to go outside and he jumps very high. So we need some type of a higher than a 3-foot fence to stop him from
Sure.
getting out.
Sure.
I'm I know we'd gone pretty far into the boundaries of the property with the 6-foot fence. I'm flexible to work with the neighborhood and to work with the committee to figure out what may make sense. We do require some form of a higher fenced in area. We're flexible in relation to what border lines that could potentially be. So we're fine with a 3-foot fence, maybe around the front of the property. But we do require a higher fence, at least for some part. of
I
it.
understand that, but we're the Historic District Commission, and it's clear that from a streetscape perspective, that's not appropriate. And I quote you from a previous screen that we were surprised by. You knew that this was on the corner lot, and it's a gorgeous corner lot. And it shows off the 1920s contributing structure that has a place in this town. And that's a big deal from a historic district itself. And it's, there's some due diligence that I know, I feel bad that you didn't know as a historic district, and then there's those requirements. But then, if you look at the simple text that we have online, it talks specifically about considering those things.
Sure.
And people and fences, it's a challenge. So we're gonna, have a recommendation, but that's the only one I really wanted to spend some time on. The other ones are pretty, pedantic and we can put together specs and so, for cut sheets, but that's the big one.
Sure. And so I've taken a walk down Butler Street myself, and there are other fences that are higher than, maybe they're not 6 feet, but maybe they're 5 feet.
Right.
One of the
But-
biggest things that the historic district does is it follows guidelines. Those are Department of Interior guidelines, and they cover materiality mostly. And we work with zoning to talk about height and placement. But sort of the cardinal rule of historic districts is every property is individual and unique. So you can't really look at another property and say, that's there, therefore I assume I can do this. It's logical to think that, but it rarely works that way because there's you, especially you have an interesting sort of corner lot. So you have two elevations on a contributing property,
Sure.
which makes it even harder for you. So you can't really compare super easily. It's too difficult.
All right.
Keep going.
That's it. That was my, in the fact end of it. And plus, you have to consider your neighbors.
Sure. And again, like I said, I'm
It's
willing to
huge.
I'm willing to compromise on figuring out what this kind of proposal may be with the
Okay.
fences.
All right, good. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So I stick with the fence if we could. What is the objective guideline for us here? Because some people like fences, some people don't. Some people
How
like
does it
big
read?
fences, some people don't.
You want to know how it reads? Like the actual guideline itself?
Sure.
Okay. Which is it, section 1(4), it starts with an overview and it says, the surroundings, identify the significant characteristics of the history and or architecture of the surroundings and give consideration to the impact of the proposed changes on the integrity of the surrounding area. I mean, that's as simple as it gets.
Mr. Chair, I can add a little bit to that, and I apologize, staff didn't have pull out this separate guideline and report. I discussed the fence with the applicant, and so essentially, I think Mr. Patterson is correct. So we have a zoning ordinance standard, and it's really unique in that it treats kind of corner lots. It allows the side with the longest dimension to be considered the side yard, and that allows you to put a higher fence in that side yard on a corner lot. Or in general, he has two front yards, but you're correct in that your historic district guidelines state that fencing shall be permitted contingent upon the appearance and appropriateness in relation to the building and historic district. So that gives you the flexibility to determine what's appropriate from a historic district perspective, absent the fact that there's a separate zoning requirement.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, Dan, did you want to keep going?
Yes, can you clarify which window you're talking about on the back that you're going to convert into a door? There's a little window. Is that the one?
Can I come over?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is it that one?
No, it's this one.
The big one?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's off the dining room. That will be a 60-inch door that will either lead down into the backyard area or into a deck
okay,
and then the ask was also to expand this window
I see,
to a double.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? John?
Well, the fence seems to be the big issue, and I mean, as far as contributing structures, in my opinion, this is one of the most, it's like in the top 10%. I've just always, this house is so simple and so sawdust. The materiality is really important on the fence, and if zoning determines the height, if we can't have a say in that, or can we? Is that, I'm trying to understand the difference between where do we come on to the decision making here? Is it just the materiality or is it the?
I think my perspective is that the Historic District Commission has some latitude in looking at height, as long as there's a tie back to the appropriateness, in relation to the building and historic district. So
I don't think of this much fence. There's a lot of picket fences along the front on Butler Street. I'd have to be convinced and talk more about it, but definitely I'm not excited about a vinyl fence either. I don't know about.
Yeah, again, I'm flexible on material, I'm flexible on height, I'm flexible on location. I would like at least a piece of it potentially, and maybe we can talk about where those pieces would be, where we did have a bit of a higher fence and the rest could be picket. So I'm flexible on how we can structure it with the rule, within the rules and within whatever you guys like, I guess at the end of the day.
An observation, and I don't know, you, again, Tim said everything, we look at every project, every property individually. There are examples, there's one on the corner of one block over that has the back has a fence, but the front has a picket fence.
Right.
So.
And I'm flexible with those kinds of
I don't know
alternatives.
Where that falls, but I'd rather see something like that and keep this side and front open. And I don't know what that does to the neighbors. I think the height is one thing, materiality is another thing, and the footprint is another thing. There's three main variables here for us to look at.
Yeah, because there is already a 5.5-ish foot fence on one side of the property already that doesn't go all the way to the front.
Is that high enough for your dog?
He's tried to to get a squirrel over it. But again, we're flexible, you know.
Anything else?
No, just the simplicity of this house is so, it's so important. Like there's so few of these left. And even like the minimal landscaping and the white on white, everything about it is quintessential Saugatuck to me. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time with this.
We're not tearing down the house, I promise you.
Okay. No, I love it. And in the corner, Keith made a good point. The corner is a special situation.
Yeah. And again, I'm fine, like if the desire is to maybe we move the fence in to line up with the house itself. And then there's another section on the other side, which still gives us an L shape, which is a fairly sizable area for him to. Yeah.
From that corner back.
Yeah.
What you're saying?
Anything else?
No. I didn't. Yeah, no.
So I'll close out the fence comments. You do have two front important elevations since you're on a corner. And that's a game changer to your point about where we weigh in. I guess to cover placement, it's not uncommon to have a picket fence out to the sidewalk.
Okay.
And that can be charming. On 2.5 of the sides of the elevation. As long as the materiality would be wood and not a vinyl fence.
Okay.
There may be vinyl fences elsewhere in the district, but it's clearly in our guidelines that we do not approve white vinyl. For me, there's no scenario where anything different than a picket fence, higher or different in materiality of wood, could exist anywhere on two sides of the property. I can't see it. And it would be like a stockade feel anywhere, whether it's back into the property, just anything above or beyond a picket fence on property line isn't natural to what the streetscape would be on this street. John pointed out the 5-foot fence between the properties. That's normal in a 1920s, 30s, 40s neighborhood to have that height of a fence where the privacy meets two different homes. So that's normal to me with the fence that's already there, which looks like it's wood. But I would not, our guidelines are pretty clear on materiality and placement on a situation like this.
So can I maybe ask a comment on maybe you doing the idea of having the white picket fence on the exterior two sides, but then potentially having that interior fence that lines up with the property edge, and then one on the
building edge.
building edge, and then one that also lines up with the front building edge so that there is an enclosed kind of L space. Does that make sense?
When I say 2.5 sides, I'm saying I wouldn't endorse a 6-foot fence from the corner of the property back to the garage. I wouldn't endorse it down this side, and I wouldn't endorse it down Butler. And I wouldn't endorse it going back to meet the current fence.
Even if it's in, like, so we would still do the white picket. So even if it was interior.
A picket low fence is the only thing that would work for me to enclose the yard.
Except for down the middle between the two houses.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's already there.
Yeah,
And that's normal.
that's normal.
And zoning would approve that. We would approve that if it's wood.
One second.
We would not approve that if you wanted to replace that fence between the houses and it was vinyl and
If
6
yeah,
foot.
if it was the one in the picture, we would not.
And then what about the space between ours and the gentleman? Oh, sorry, I forget your name. Sorry. Logan, there's a wire fence there right now. What would we potentially replace that with, or would we leave that as is, or?
I'm sorry, I don't remember. Is
Is
that
that on the
behind
back?
the garage?
That's behind the garage.
I do believe that fence belongs to me.
Yeah. So so if we were to put the wood fence on that side of the property, would that be okay, or would?
If it's wood, yeah, and I think you could go higher on that part behind the garage because it's not an elevation and it would match what's there. But you can't have a fence against a fence, so you need to work with your neighbor on that. But
Because I think part of it's broken anyway, right?
so
There's a gap in the fence.
Yeah.
Because the property is used to be able to see a fence, there's a transfer through.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
There's a.
So
I guess what
when
you-
I'm coming over for dinner on Tuesdays and Thursdays. is the reason.
Yeah.
Got it.
Please do.
So I guess what you're hearing is the fence that's there and that wire fence that's there, like that's a normal spot to put the fence that you're looking for. Everywhere else, I think in what you're asking for is not a normal spot.
And
for
what's the
historic
height that you're proposing?
Your height of a normal picket fence, your 3-foot fence.
Okay,
I mean, that's normal for that neighborhood,
For the
for
two
me,
sides.
for my,
Full
for
two
for
sides.
the full, I call it 2.5 back to the garage too, because he wants to enclose for the dog.
Yeah.
So,
correct.
yeah, so.
And
back-
then
back
the
to
also the piece that is on the other side of the property as well, because that wood fence doesn't currently come all the way forward.
Yeah, and I think what zoning usually says is that fence that's there now between the two properties that's taller, call it 5 foot. Those higher fences never go in front of the street facade, so the setback.
Got
So
it.
the front of each house, it would only be high up to a point of the corner of the house. And then if you needed a fence there, it would need to come back down and meet the picket fence.
Okay, so we could do the picket fence is what you're saying.
You'd return it with
Got it.
picket.
Perfect. Okay.
You would not return it with higher.
Okay,
So I think what you, like, from one person's perspective, you have a materiality conversation of it needs to be wood, follows our guidelines pretty clearly. You have another, like, it's normal to put a picket fence around a property like this. Historic districts, you see it all the time. I don't think that's unreasonable, in my opinion. Anything beyond that higher or more than is unreasonable for this property. So that's my opinion on that. I'm actually more concerned about your windows.
okay.
Do you have more photos or can tell us about the condition of your windows?
So yes, there was a comment that the LED lighting should be tried to be salvaged. I mean, they're all kind of busted through. There's gaps in them. I don't know if people like fell into them as they were walking up the stairs, but it is pushed in and it's all kind of caved to a side. So we have to replace those regardless. There's not a way to try to fix those. The other windows, I mean, they're in okay shape, but there's storm windows outside. But they're not like repairable from what is there today. So which is why we proposed installing new.
Can you tell me more about what's there today?
I
What's the
don't know.
age?
I have no idea.
Got those in son-in-law, they're old wooden sash windows with the lead weights and the sills, and they're shot, they're beyond repair. That's, you know, you get windows that are that old.
Some of them have leaded glass over the top.
Yeah, the two on the stairs and then the one in the front. Yeah, so
They need to be replaced, they're weatherproof windows.
So, I mean, that honestly, that made it worse for me, not better, because they sound amazing in their originality and repairing of those old hardwood windows is usually what we require, and that's in our guidelines. Unless they're rotted to the point of they cannot be put back together. There's people that specialize that.
Close.
Yeah.
They look like when the corner.
We would,
Yeah, I mean,
My-
they don't
my-
even, they don't even open.
yeah, well, they can be made to open.
There are restorers.
There are restorers, efficiency wise, you know, there's many studies about the efficiency of a really good storm over an original window versus thermopane. But countless times, we do not approve the removal of original windows unless there's proof that they cannot be repaired.
Okay.
So I wouldn't feel comfortable if I had to vote on that tonight. I would not vote for window replacement. And so I would want to know more about the current condition of the windows. We're happy to take a closer look and maybe talk about it. at the
There are
next meeting.
definitely some that are rotted upstairs for sure, because I can see the gaps in I can see two outside. So if there were some that were rotted and some that were repairable, would the decision be repair the ones that could be repaired? Because then I worry about the mismatch of the materials.
And we would work with you on that. Usually the rule of thumb for originality is you try to keep an elevation the same. So you try to keep the front of the house like original and repaired if it would work out that way. And if there's really rotten ones on the side, you could replace one whole side. But we try to avoid this or that. If there's a majority that are bad and you can't do this and that would be not what you would want, we would approve whole replacement. And then we would talk about the spec that you've given us.
Got it.
And then it's really clear in our guidelines about no snap-in muttons, like they're not sandwiched between glass. It has to be simulated divided light, which is what we have in here.
Got it.
And we can help you with that. But as these guys know, the windows are probably my bigger concern. I appreciate your concern about the fence. The windows
Okay.
are really part of the
So
structure.
what would you need? Just photos of some of the damage and things like that, or?
Yeah,
Okay,
we would. We need more detail on, I appreciate your detail on the fact that they're original, but we need more like close-up proof of where they're failing and their lack of being able to be repaired.
okay.
And
And the energy efficiency doesn't really matter? Okay,
it doesn't. It's a contributing property, so it's really important to preserve, and windows are kind of the key architectural feature there.
even with storms over them.
Especially with storms over them, because
Okay.
it's how it would have been done in the day. Now, maybe your storms aren't contributing in that, maybe they're not good storms. I need to take a closer look at that.
Okay,
There's a couple. Kind of back to your original point, like if you want to look at one that you would think should have been pulled out and trashed and redone, look at the Judson Heath property on the corner. Those are all replaced windows, but that was a great example of they were disintegrated and they replaced them with wood windows that were simulated divided light.
got it.
And then there's other examples that still have the original wood storms over the original windows that we didn't approve taking
it.
out. So usually when you see a wooden storm, it's a pretty good. They were probably replaced much later, yeah. So, and the last thing I'll say, sorry, I'm compartmentalizing in my own comment section. I don't think this is a historic district commission that rarely weighs in on trees. There are some commissions throughout the country that are very, very focused on, you can't take that tree down because it's part of the historic fabric of the neighborhood or whatever. We traditionally have not voted that way. That's not to say that a commissioner may not have an opinion of, no, you shouldn't take that tree down, so I'm voting no. But I don't feel like we've been consistent on trees. So
Can we offer a suggestion? There's a local company, that specializes in determining if the tree is stable.
Okay,
And they can put in those wires, on a tree that has two trunks going like that. They can, if it already has one of those, they can update it if it's needed. They can pretty much tell you if this is at risk.
okay,
And if
great.
it's not at risk, it's a beautiful tree.
Right.
But Bartlett Tree is the name of it, and I could give you that number.
That'd be great.
Like, they're the best,
Yep.
in my experience.
I would not be, I'd not be a fan of taking the tree down
Yeah.
either, but I recognize your concern and I do think that is your right. But I love it if you got an expert opinion on that.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the door next to the porch is weird. Technically, it's the back of the house. I know you want to try to make a bigger window above that. Technically, it's the back of the house, but it is kind of the side of the house because it's on a corner. You also looks like you have a bulkhead underneath that.
That's to the side. So there's a right next, I guess,
No, that's it.
if there's a,
Yeah.
there's another picture that'll come up shortly. Yeah, so there's it's a small, it goes up to, I guess, the edge of this bush. So the idea was to make this door a little, the door this way,
Oh, got it. I thought you were replacing the little window.
this one here.
Yeah,
No. it
Gotcha,
wouldn't.
okay.
It's this one. And this is going away. So this will not be, this door will be kind of closed and this will, the idea is that this won't be the door.
so this goes back to my other comment. I don't think we can vote on that part of this tonight because I think we really need drawings of what you want to do so that it's documented. I can't vote on where I think the door is going to go without a drawing and
And it's
where.
fine for me to just do the drawing and.
Yeah,
submit it. Okay.
Yeah, just with measurements and it doesn't have to be professional. You don't have to spend.
Yeah,
much
so I can
money
just
on it.
override on this one and.
Yeah, and can I interrupt just for a moment? If I go back to our guidelines on retaining windows and doors, because I was thinking the same thing. You've got a side view, which also has a streetscape and personality. That's an original window. And you say, the requirement says windows and doors that contribute to the overall historic character of a building should be retained and repaired as needed. We talked about that, including everything that goes with that, decorative features and so forth. That is clearly part of the original structure. And to me, would be something I would not recommend to install doors there when you can't make that back to its original state.
You can't, I agree. It also impacts the wood that's there and how do you feather that in
The wood,
the siding?
The lap siding. Or whatever it is.
if you were to put it back to where the original state, you mean?
No, I mean, even if you're.
Just the execution of the
execution, making
doors.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So. I think in some cases, we've voted to table, and in some cases we've denied, if that is the way this goes. So that the application can come back in its fullness in a different way.
Yep.
And you can get approved. I'm not sure which route we should take on this.
Well, we didn't get to the patio yet.
Well, I mean, I thought you guys didn't have any.
But I mean, I was just waiting if we wanted. to
Somebody else
include
cut it
that.
out, yeah.
Go ahead.
Can we go back to the fence? Because there was a counter proposal. Is the counter proposal is the 3-foot fence? Is that what the counter proposal is?
Well, I'm answering my own question actually, because we can't give you guidance on what we can vote on what's in front of us is all we can do.
Okay,
So we were giving you guidance on what
be
our
approved.
reaction is and perhaps how we were going to vote and why we would vote that way. So we can put in the motion that we deny the fence as submitted, but would approve a blah, blah, blah.
okay.
If
But
that
then I have to come back with the,
other stuff.
but do I have to come, if it was? So my question, I guess, then is if I did just do the 3-foot fence, would I need to come back again for approval or would that be approved with this?
We can make it staff approval on materiality. But I think there's too much in question about where the fence goes. There's too many things going on. So I'd recommend that I'd recommend if we're going to deny it, we vote on it, deny it, and you come back with an appropriate drawing and materiality.
With
samples of
with the new
fence.
3-foot wood
Correct.
picket fence?
Yeah.
And,
Detail of it too, there's different ways to do.
Yep.
Correct. That's exactly right.
and, on the one where you have the wire fence, the chain link fence or whatever it is, are you going to separate it?
Correct.
And
Fine, I'll have to talk to Logan about that. when we come back.
so you would have to put it on your property, separate it from that fence that's existing.
Got it.
How you're gonna do that and what height will it be and how will it transition into because it's gonna tie into the bigger fence that's already there, right?
Do you want to replace when it's already there, that's a whole other question.
So this is why I think
Yeah.
it just needs to come back.
Sure.
So for efficiency, we may make a motion after we talk about the patio and anything else, we may make a motion just to approve as submitted and deny that, and you can come back with a complete application.
And is that a month from now?
That would be a month from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does it have, can I submit it with that? Like, could you approve it with that coming back to the meeting or no? You have to come back. to the
No,
meeting. Okay.
there's enough, especially with the windows. There's enough variation from this application that needs to be documented.
Got it.
If we're going to, like, if there's any chance we're gonna deny that set of, it's a French door, was that what you wanted to put in there? Or just a single door, French door in the?
I'm flexible.
If we don't see that being something we could approve, you're working on your interior right now. right?
Correct.
And that influences that,
Correct.
yeah. So you might not want to wait a month, it looks like you're making.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's why I
So-
mentioned that we.
Yeah.
So we can continue to have dialogue about this before we take a vote so that you know why it's approved or disapproved. So you can, any more you want to say about that? Because I think it's a fair point. Like, that's why we need drawings showing that elevation, because if it's a French door,
And again, I'm flexible, Tim. Like if you say, I don't want a French door, try to keep it within that structure and it's a single door.
we can't do that. We can't design for you or with you. We can only say what our guidelines say and react to what you're asking for. So I think instead of what's there, part of what you're starting to hear, which is right against our guidelines, is if this were on the back of the house and no one else saw it,
Right.
that's a different conversation than actually being on the side, which it is because it's on a corner. So it's important for commissioners to say that elevation is important and you're introducing a new element, you're removing historic fabric. And it, a single or a double may not work, is I think what you're hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that, my point was he's doing his interior, he might have to just plan.
Without it.
put it in
Right.
And put it in later if it somehow gets approved, but right now I don't think we can approve that based on what we talked about.
I mean, you're walking down the sidewalk right now in this picture and you can, it's fully visible, that window, that door, whatever you're doing back there is really visible. So you have a unique challenge.
There was a fence there until about,
I mean, so, going right down the
I get
path there.
Keith, did you want to talk about patio?
Well, the patio doesn't matter anymore if I can't put a door there, so.
Well, I would say, just for clarification, when we go through and say yes and no and, recommendations, I just want to make sure that you understand that if you're thinking that there's going to be a pass-through or a doorway on the side, that falls into the same category as the discussion we just had about the rear door. So you show it in the drawing, you show it on this side of on the Spear Street side,
Yeah.
correct? So my question, when I saw this plan view, I said, well, are you going to be going in there? Or are you going to be accessing from the
Yeah,
outside?
there was a secondary drawing, Keith, that got sent over. We moved it to the back of the property.
Ah, okay,
so
I
versus
must have
here.
missed that.
Yeah, that moved to the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same concern. How are you gonna get in and out? It sounds like that.
Right, and then
The door discussion is what we were covering then, right?
Well, you can if there's no door.
Right. Okay. That's all I had.
I guess I would add on to this, because of living in past districts with the same situation. I don't think this is what you would want to do, but if you go to the extent of rethinking the back of that house and you follow our guidelines, that's the back of the house that changes. So you could, I'm making it up, I'm not giving you advice. The back of the house could look modern, it could feel different than the front of the house and be a separate addition somehow versus feeling like you made small things that don't fit. There could be some intention, but I don't hear you saying you want to rethink by, adding
I don't wanna
a room,
add-
adding a
yeah, I don't wanna
whole-
extend the
rethinking the whole
house, yeah,
elevation.
yeah.
That's where we're coming from though. And even that wouldn't be easy because of the purity of this house, how it sits on the lot.
Yeah, I think that would totally diminish the.
I do too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I would try to fit in with and again, I don't want to put a slider in. I don't want to put something that's completely abnormal looking, which is why we were thinking a French door that would somewhat be aesthetically pleasing and, be in line with what we were trying to do here. And that's why we were flexible with the deck instead, maybe if you don't want to have an enclosed porch, maybe we have, steps down into the yard. Or, an above grade deck. So I think we're flexible with it. I'm hearing what is palatable and what's not palatable though. And I guess I'll circle back with what could work. We would love a door to be able to enjoy the outside. Would it be palatable if it was on the other side of the house?
I can't speak to that with really understanding that elevation, but I think you might need a little architect help, to be honest. That might, given the importance of this structure, I don't want you to,
Yeah, I guess, because I'm hearing there's two streetscapes and try to do it where it's not visible. And so I guess I'm asking if it's not visible on this side of the house, which is what you're seeing, is that more palatable to the committee?
depends on what it is, honestly. So when we look at corner structures, you look at the front elevation and you look at the side elevation as a front elevation. If you didn't have a corner, we would still look at the side elevations with importance. So it's not the fact that it's on the neighbor's side doesn't make it not important. It just may make it not important as the other side.
Sure.
So, but I can't speak to that.
But yeah, so it's a little challenging because now you were saying the back's also important.
You just have a challenge, unfortunately, because you bought a very pure structure that neatly fits into the historic district and why it's a historic district. And there's so many factors that are contributing: the originality of the windows, the outside, the trees, the expansive lawn, the meatloafs and meatballs, the bushes, which is your prerogative to do what you want with landscape. But all of that is so minimal, which is what this would have been in the day. So you have to live for today. We get that. But
Yeah, and we don't plan on changing the minimalistic.
you're changing a lot that really impacts the flavor and voice of this house on the street. So with the fence and what you're talking about in the back. So that's where we're coming from on it.
Sure. So which parts were approved?
Sounds like you need a roof. Um, Anybody have a comment on, I mean, I think the roof is fine. It's there's an asphalt roof.
Style was in here.
It's the same.
Same as it is now.
Yeah, it's just different color.
I don't think we get into colors, do we?
No.
Right.
Not, only if like an applicant suggests a checkerboard asphalt roof or.
Put his
something like
name
that.
on it or something.
Yeah.
And then
What page is that on the roofs?
Mail pouch or something like that on it.
It's kind of right before windows.
kind of like what's on the screen now. Not the metal, obviously, just the
yeah.
shingle.
I just want to see if they're, the newer dimensional shingle, because that isn't necessarily appropriate for this house. Where a flatter overlay shingle is, more appropriate.
So it's what is, they quoted, the quote that I got, and I believe I put the name of in the response, I put the name.
This one I'm trying to.
Anybody find the page?
I think he included it. He had responded to the consultant's reports. And I think I provided, I don't know if everybody had a chance to take a look at that, but
I
yeah,
did.
lengthy, yeah.
I just want to clarify that.
I think you're right, John, but if it already has dimensional, he's able to do dimensional. And I don't remember from my drive-by.
It's gonna look
That
exactly,
means
it's the
somebody
same, it's the same.
Somebody approved it, the previous historical commission approved it.
So maybe what we could do, I think that's the only outstanding thing we didn't talk about. What we could do is make a motion to approve. Let me just make a motion.
Why don't you do it? Yep.
Is there any more discussion?
Nope.
Um,
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Things like removing so the porches in the front and the back have like carpeting on them, almost like that's not an issue if I remove that, right?
It would only be an issue if you were removing hardwood from the porch. So
No, there's carpet
orig-
on top of the
Yeah,
hardwood.
so if you, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Is it original hardwood underneath? Like
I have no
planks?
idea.
It's rebuilt probably about 50 years.
Or just plywood,
It's plywood.
probably just plywood.
Is it plywood down or is it plank down? Can I just put 2x6?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if the commission had feedback on the lights that he was proposing. One was example lights on the garage, the other was an example of lights that would go on either side of the front door.
I think it all has to be one new application.
Okay.
So what I was planning on doing was making a motion. That basically focused on the roof. Unless somebody has a better idea of how to do that motion.
Well, I do have a question.
Well-
If the lighting is an issue, is there a reason why maybe the lighting was not appropriate? So
We can
that,
give- yeah,
so that when I do come back, it's with the complete package, it's at least.
I personally, usually in guidelines, so go back and read, but I'm okay. On a historic structure, lighting should not be decorative or embellish. So if you had done something really scrolly and crazy. But these are not scrolly and crazy. These are pretty straightforward to the,
Think 1920.
Yeah.
Because it's a 1920 colonial revival structure.
So, would the lights that I recommended be 1920?
I'm not the guy to ask.
Can't really.
I think,
You have to, like,
let me try one.
But you have to submit.
So-
Based
so-
on that.
Yeah, we're not the architects.
Yeah.
And Tim
fairness.
suggested an architect, and this feels like you need some outside counsel other than ours. To help guide some of the decisions that you have to make here, because this is a jewel.
Yeah, we
It's a
have
jewel- it's a
opinions, we
jewel.
just, that's not our job here to do
so,
that.
but you're asking us to react to these, I think, in a vote. Because he did submit them.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of reacting to like. This is of the style.
That's 1920.
This is, you can interpret this as being too modern or not embellished, like different people will have different opinions. I think it's not doing a ton of harm in the big scheme of things.
Okay.
But don't take that as a go. We need to vote on it. And then I guess just to completely close the loop on your doors, as you come back with doors and windows after you've done the research and give us photos of the condition of the windows. Just remember, anything that's there can be replaced like as. So if there's a fiberglass door there, you can replace it with a fiberglass door. If there's a hardwood door that's original, you can't replace it. We would not approve rather replacing that hardwood door that's original with something different if it's
Well,
operable.
Wouldn't it be the same as the windows? We want to see if
Correct.
the condition was bad enough, so you want to submit
Correct.
photos, close-up photos of, and the backing up to the windows that you're going to take pictures of, the leaded glass windows, can you include those? too?
Of course. Yeah, and the doors, we were using the existing front door that we were just repairing. And there is no door on the back structure. It's a storm door. So we're asking to add a door.
You could get started. Tim.
Yeah, this is the-
Replacing the gutter on the front porch.
Not replacing, adding. Because there's only a small piece of it.
Sorry, let me just, give me a sec. I have pages everywhere here. There we go. I would like to make a motion for 647 Butler Street. To approve the application only in part, including the lights as submitted, the exterior lighting as submitted, and the roof as submitted, considering that it is like as for style in what is on the roof currently. So if it's a dimensional asphalt roof, it's replaced with a dimensional. If it's not, it's replaced with like as.
3-tab, yeah.
Yeah. 3-tab, thank you. And with the notation that all other parts of the application are denied, and the applicant will come back with a revised application based on the feedback from this meeting's application. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? I guess the only discussion I would ask the city is that motion? Does that
Yeah.
work for you?
I think that's proper. You have a motion to approve certain items and including in the motion to deny the remainder portions. I think that's clear to staff.
Okay. With that, no more discussion.
Yeah, the only thing would be with the resubmission to submit architectural drawings of
Yeah,
changes
good-
that are
good add.
proposed.
Good add.
So actual drawings with dimensions and specifications, you know, that shows the exterior changes that you're gonna make.
Yeah, and again, I don't, if we can't do any of the things like the decks and stuff, I don't think we're gonna do.
You won't need that.
In the first place, I don't think we'll need those drawings.
No.
Things like doors and things like that, we need to just replace them. I'll just indicate on the drawing what we're, because there is no back door
Perfect. Yeah,
today,
yep.
so I'll just indicate that. And I guess the new proposal for the fence, I can just map that out just like I did with the existing drawings. That's
not
correct.
Mhm.
I don't need an
Um,
architect for that.
yeah, with photo documentation of,
What type of fence?
yeah, materials, everything, profile, anything else, we need the documentation. So we have a motion on the floor, no more discussion. All in favor signify by saying yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you for
Thanks,
working
Suresh.
with, thank you for working with your neighbors to,
Experience.
To the
Yeah.
other part of the neighborhood.
thanks for working with your neighbors too.
Yeah.
And for the applicant, I just want to, like, if it's okay to just to make clear to, you know, got to make sure that this is submitted back to staff so we can evaluate and prepare a report in a packet. So it won't be just coming back to them and presenting something in 30 days. I mean, we would need this at least a week before January 26th to make, at least a week before January 26th to have time to evaluate it, because that's when their packet would typically go out for their February 2nd meeting. So, yep.
Are there any notes on administrative approvals or updates?
Yes, Mr. Chair, one administrative approval since your last meeting, that was for a 3-foot tall fence at 560 Mill Street. Otherwise, no others.
Thank you. Any communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Any more public comment? And there's somebody on Zoom, Jennifer Reese. I know you had your hand up. I apologize. We passed the first public comment section, so I wasn't calling on you, but I wasn't ignoring you. I saw you. This is
No,
another public comment section. I just wanted to see if you had anything to say.
Well, I just want to say, I live on Spear Street, 245 Spear. I'd be there in person, but I've actually come down with COVID. I look forward to meeting Suresh. I won't add to the fence talk. I just really want to get the words in. Very pleased to see the Historic Commission recognizing the jewel that house is. We're 2 doors up from it, and the Block Party was referenced, and I'm just going to reference that again because there's nothing like and nothing where I've lived before ever in other major cities where you can walk down a street and everybody's front yards are connected. And you can go from home to home to home and see and meet and talk and do the chit chat. And it's just the fence. I was so worried about the fence because that would just start eroding what we're creating in this neighborhood and what's existed since my husband was born, literally. So I just want to make sure that I said that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And thanks again to the applicant for being willing to listen to all that.
Yes, thank you, Suresh. I look forward to meeting you.
Is there any additional? Oh, sorry. I see another hand. Eric.
Hey, I just wanted to say, you guys, first of all, Eric Burkholz, I own 711 Butler Street, directly across Spear Street from Suresh's house. So I just wanted to say you guys just had a great meeting. Welcome Suresh to the neighborhood. I'm usually at the house a few times a week at 7-Eleven. If you want to pop over, if you're down there, or if I see you, I'll stop by and say hi. But I just wanted to say welcome to the neighborhood. I appreciate you willing to work with the neighbors and the commission to get this project, at least the exterior of it, really rolling here. So anyway, great meeting, and thank you all.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the comments. Yes.
Hi, Russ Gardner again, 245 Spear Street. I just want to commend the commission on your professionalism and attention to detail for this property and this application. Again, I want to welcome Suresh to the neighborhood. May seem a little onerous in terms of this process, but this place is very important to us. And what brought you to the community and brought you to that house brought many, many others to this community. And so we're very careful about the word quaint gets thrown around. But what quaint means to me is that we can move forward in the community, but however, we need to maintain some of the architectural integrity of the community because that's what brings people to town. People come into town and they see that house and they're like, yep, that just reminds me that I'm back in Saugatuck. Now, I know that's what our zoning code is meant to comply with, is meant to maintain, as well as historic district code is meant to maintain. I've sat in your seats. I've been on this commission. I just commend you on your work. It's a difficult process, but as has been said, I look forward as a neighbor to working with you and welcoming you to the neighborhood, as well as I'm sure the commissioners do too, in getting this project right. Also want to mention there was 2 written comments that were emailed in that want to make sure that's part of the record this evening too, from Susie Newby, as well as Bill Hill.
Yeah, Susie, that was included in, was sent to the commissioners
Right,
this
'cause that
week, and
I usually
Bill
would read
Hill.
those, but I stormed in here.
Got
late,
it.
But
All
he
right.
did send it to all of us.
Okay,
So
thank you.
We did have it as part of the record.
Yep, and Suresh, as you'll learn, Eric Burkholz, his family has owned that property since I don't know when. We've owned our property since the mid-1950s. My uncle lives across the street. He's owned that house for over 50 years, and my grandmother owned it before him, great-grandmother. There's a lot of history on this street in this community, which I think we want to maintain, but also we want to welcome new people that come into town. I mean, that's Saugatuck. We're welcoming, but we're also very careful about maintaining the things that we feel are important to us. And architecture is part of it. So again, thank you. I'm very, very pleased with this evening's meeting and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thanks,
words. Are there any other commission comments? Nope. If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Thank you. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining Garnet to watch.
Yeah, hi, guys. Great meeting.
Send him.
Brian
Moses stuff.
Oh, you wrote it down. Good.
So you're on.
Thank you, Tim.
There's
Thanks.
here, then there's.
This one would be.
And then there's mine, and it's all.
What it was.
I appreciate your iPad.